Conclusion to the second aim. Once, when I was reflecting on divine oneness, I looked at the fruits on the plane tree outside my room. A chain of thought came to me as inspiration, and I write it here in Arabic exactly as it came to me. All these fruits and the seeds within them are miracles of dominical wisdom, wonders of divine art, gifts of divine mercy, material proofs of divine unity, bearers of the good news that divine favors will be granted in the hereafter. Just as they are all truthful witnesses to His all-embracing power and knowledge, each of them is a mirror confirming His unity in all the corners of the world of multiplicity and in all the parts of the world of this tree, a world that has become multiple. They turn the gaze from multiplicity to unity. Each of them says through the tone of its being, "Do not let your glance wander over all this mighty spreading tree, lest you become distracted, for the whole tree is within us. Its multiplicity is contained within our unity." Even just as every seed, which is like the heart of the fruit, is a physical mirror confirming divine unity, so it mentions and recites in the silent prayer of its heart the divine names the mighty tree recites in its audible prayer. Furthermore, just as the fruits and seeds are mirrors professing divine unity, so they are the visible signs of divine determining and embodied tokens of divine power. Through these words, divine determining and power intimate the following. The many branches and twigs of this tree appeared from a single seed and demonstrate the unity of the tree's artist in creating it and giving it form. Then, after growing and spreading its branches, it gathered together all its truths in a single fruit. It encapsulated its entire meaning in a single seed, thereby demonstrating the wisdom in the glorious Creator's creation and planning. Similarly, the tree of the universe takes its existence from a source of unity and is sustained by it. And man, the fruit of the universe, demonstrates unity within this multiplicity of beings, while with the eye of faith his heart sees the mystery of unity within multiplicity. Moreover, the fruits and seeds are allusions of dominical wisdom. Wisdom says the following with them to those who are aware: the comprehensive regard towards this tree and its planning look with their comprehensiveness and universality to a single fruit. For the fruit is a miniature specimen of the tree. It is what is aimed at by the tree. Also, the comprehensive regard and planning look to every seed within the fruit, for the seed bears the meaning or index of the whole tree. That is to say, since the fruit is the aim, the tree's existence, and the purpose of its creation, the one who plants the tree regards each fruit with all his names connected to the planning. Moreover, the mighty tree is sometimes pruned and trimmed for the sake of the tiny fruit. Some parts of it are destroyed so that it may make new growth. It is grafted in order to produce even better, permanent fruit. In the same way, man, who is the fruit of the tree of the universe, is the purpose of its creation and existence and the aim of the creation of beings, while his heart, which is the seed of the fruit, is a most brilliant and comprehensive mirror to the universe's maker. It follows on from this wisdom, therefore, that tiny man will be the cause of the destruction and transformation of the universe. He will be the point of momentous revelations like the day of resurrection. It will be for his judgment that the door of this world will be closed and that of the hereafter opened. Since we have arrived at a discussion of resurrection, it is appropriate to explain one point concerning its reality, which demonstrates the clarity and strength with which the Qur'an of miraculous exposition illuminates and proves resurrection. The result yielded by this sequence of thought shows that if it is necessary for man's judgment and his gaining eternal happiness, the whole universe will be destroyed, and that a power capable of destroying and transforming the universe shows itself and exists. But resurrection has many degrees. It is obligatory to believe in some of them. They must be acknowledged, whereas others become apparent according to levels in spiritual and intellectual development, and for this knowledge pertaining to both are necessary. In order to present cogent and strong proofs for the simplest and easiest level, the all-wise Qur'an points out a power capable of opening up a truly vast realm of resurrection. The degree of resurrection in which it is necessary for all to believe is this: after human beings die, their spirits depart for another realm, and their bodies rot except for a minute cell from the base of the spine, which will act as a seat. It remains intact, and on the day of resurrection, God Almighty will create the human body out of it and return its spirit to it. This degree is so simple that it may be seen every spring through millions of examples. Sometimes, in order to prove this degree, the verses of the Qur'an point out the unlimited activity of a power capable of raising to life all particles, and sometimes the traces of a power and wisdom capable of sending all creatures to extinction and then recalling them. Then they point to the activity and traces of a power and wisdom able to scatter the stars and shatter the heavens, and sometimes to the activity and manifestations of a power and wisdom capable of causing all animate creatures to die and then raising them to life again all at once at a single trumpet blast. Sometimes the verses demonstrate the manifestations of a power and wisdom that will raise to life the face of the earth and animate creatures all separately. And sometimes they demonstrate the traces of a power and wisdom that, lopping off its mountains, will cause the globe of the earth to disintegrate completely, and then restoring it will transform it into an even more excellent form. That is to say, apart from the day of resurrection, in which it is obligatory for everyone to believe and to acknowledge, with that power and wisdom, God Almighty can create numerous other degrees and resurrections. And what is more, dominical wisdom requires that besides certainly bringing about mankind's resurrection, he shall bring about all those other degrees or create certain other important matters. A question. You say, you make much use of analogies in the form of comparisons or parables in the words, whereas according to the science of logic, this form of analogy does not afford certainty. A logical proof is required for matters of certain knowledge. Analogy in the form of comparison and parable is utilized by scholars of canon law in matters in which the prevailing opinion is sufficient. Also, you present comparisons in the form of certain stories. The stories are imaginary and cannot be true. Is this not contrary to reality? The answer: it has often been stated in the science of logic that analogies in the form of comparisons and parables do not afford certain knowledge. However, there is a certain type of this form of analogy that forms a proof more powerful than those proofs consisting of certain knowledge used in logic. Also, it is more certain than that sort of deduction. This type of analogy is as follows. It demonstrates the tip of a universal truth by means of a partial comparison and constructs its judgments on that truth. It demonstrates the truth's law in a particular matter so that the vast truth may be known and particular matters may be ascribed to it. For example, although the sun is a single being, by means of luminosity it is present in every shining object. A law of a truth is demonstrated by means of this comparison, which states that light and luminosity cannot be restricted. For them, distance and proximity are the same, many and few are equal, and space cannot conquer them. This is another example. A tree's fruits and leaves are all shaped and formed at the same time, in the same fashion, easily and perfectly, in a single center, and through a law issuing from a command. This is a comparison or parable demonstrating the tip of a mighty truth and universal law. It proves the truth and the truth's law in a truly decisive form, so that, like the tree, the mighty universe displays and is the field of operation of that law of truth and mystery of divine oneness. Thus, the analogies, comparisons, and parables employed in all the words are in this form and are more powerful and afford more certainty than the categorical proofs of logic. Answer to the second part of the question. It is a well-known fact that, in the art of composition, when the true meaning of a word or phrase is used solely as the means to pursue another meaning, it is called an allusive expression. The essential meaning of a phrase defined as allusive is not the means of either truth or falsehood. It is its allusive meaning that is such. If the allusive meaning is correct, then the phrase is true. Even if its essential meaning is false, it does not damage its veracity. If the allusive meaning is not correct while its essential meaning is, then the phrase is false. For example, so-and-so's salvation is of great length. That is, his sword belt is very long. This phrase alludes to the man's tall stature. If he was tall but did not have a sword and belt, the phrase would still be correct and true. If he was not tall but had a long sword and belt, then the phrase would be false, since it is not its essential meaning that is intended. So, the stories or parables in the words, like for example, those in the 10th and 22nd words, are source of allusions. The truths at the end of the stories are extremely correct, extremely true, and conformable to reality. They are the allusive meanings of the stories. Their essential meanings are comparisons that bring distant objects close like a telescope, and however they may be, it does not damage their veracity and truthfulness. Moreover, all those stories are comparisons or parables, purely to enable people in general to understand what is properly communicated without words is put into words, and immaterial and abstract matters are represented in material form. Third, aim. After receiving this decisive and convincing answer to his second question, the representative of all the people of misguidance was reduced to silence, but then asked the following third question. Phrases in the Qur'an, like the best of creators and the most compassionate of the compassionate, suggest that there are other creators and compassionate ones. And you also say, the creator of all the worlds possesses endless perfections. United in him are the utmost levels of every kind of perfection. Whereas the perfections of beings are known through their opposites. If there was no pain, pleasure would not be a sort of perfection. If there was no darkness, light could not be proved to exist. If there was no separation, there would be no pleasure in union, and so on, would there? The answer. We shall answer the first part of the question in 5 indications. First indication. From beginning to end, the Qur'an demonstrates divine unity. This is a clear indication that those sorts of praises in the Qur'an are not as you understand them. Rather, the best of creators is to say, he is at the highest and best rank of creativity, which in no way indicates that there is another creator. Like the other attributes, creativity has many degrees or ranks. The best of creators means he is a glorious creator at the furthest and most excellent degree of creativity. Second indication. Terms like the best of creators do not look to a plurality of creators, but to the varieties of the state of being creature. That is, He is a creator who creates everything in an appropriate form at the most fabulous degree, versus luck, who makes most excellent everything he creates express this meaning. Third indication. The comparison suggested by terms like the best of creators, God is most great, the best judge between truth and falsehood, and the most beautiful are not comparative and superlative adjectives comparing God Almighty's attributes and actions, which are actual, with others who possess samples of those attributes and actions. For all the perfections in the universe and in jinn, man, and angels are but pale shadows in relation to his perfection. How should any comparison be possible? It is rather human beings, and particularly the people of neglect, who will see perfection in terms of comparison. For example, a private shows complete obedience and respect to his corporal. It seems to him that all benefits come from him, and he thinks little of the king. Even if he does think of him, it is still to the corporal that he shows his gratitude. So it is said to the private, "See here, the king is much greater than your corporal, it is only him that you should thank." Now, this sentence does not compare the king's imperial commandership, which is actual, with that of the corporal, which is partial and only apparent, because to do so would be meaningless. It is a result of what the private considers to be important, of how he sees his relations with the corporal, that he prefers him and loves and thanks only him. Similarly, when apparent causes are imagined to be the creator and bestower of bounties in the view of the people of neglect, they become a veil to the true bestower of bounties. These neglectful people cling onto causes and think that bounties and favors are from them. They praise and acclaim them. The Qur'an says, God Almighty is a greater, more excellent creator, a far better bestower of bounties. So look to him and thank him. Fourth indication. Just as there may be comparison between actual beings and preference for some over others, so there may be comparisons between possible or even hypothetical things and preference. Numerous degrees or levels are present in the true natures of most things. So too, in the view of the intellect, innumerable degrees may be present in the true natures of the divine names and sacred attributes, whereas God Almighty is at the most perfect and excellence of all the possible and imagined degrees of those attributes and names. The whole universe witnesses to this truth through all its perfections. His are the most beautiful names, describing all his names as the most excellent, expresses this meaning. Fifth indication. This use of the comparative and superlative is not to be understood in terms of creatures, but in terms of the fact that God Almighty has two sorts of manifestations and attributes. The first sort, through the mystery of his unity, this consists of his disposal over creatures under the veil of causes and intermediaries and in the form of a universal law. The second sort, through the mystery of his oneness, it is his disposal over creatures directly, without veil, regarding each in a particular way. This means that through the mystery of oneness, his bestowal, creation, and grandeur, which are direct, are greater and more elevated and excellent than the works of his bestowal, creation, and grandeur, which are apparent through the manifestations of causes and intermediaries. For example, let us suppose there is a king, but he is a saint king. He has great numbers of officials and commanders, but they are only veils, for the authority and execution of all matters are directly in his hand. The king's power of disposal and execution of affairs are of two kinds. The first kind, The execution of affairs he demonstrates and the commands he gives through a universal law in the form of visible officials and commanders in accordance with their abilities and ranks. The second kind. This is not through a universal law. He does not make visible officials a veil. His execution of affairs and royal favors are direct and may be described as more elevated and excellent. In the same way, the creator of the universe, the monarch of pre-eternity and post-eternity, has made numerous causes and intermediaries a veil to his execution of affairs and has demonstrated the majesty of his dominicality. But he left private telephones in his servants' hearts so that they might leave causes behind and turn directly to him and might say, "You alone do we worship, and you alone do we ask for help." Thus, the meanings of the best of creators, most compassionate of the compassionate, and God is most great, look to this meaning too. We shall answer the second part of the representative's question with 5 signs. The first sign. In his question, he said, if something has no opposite, how can it be perfection? The answer. The questioner does not know what true perfection is. What he has in mind is only relative perfection. For merits, virtues, and qualities that look to something and are acquired relatively to something else are not real, they are relative and weak. If what they look to disappears, then they too will disappear. For example, the relative pleasure and merits of heat occur through the effect of cold, and the relative pleasure of food through the effect of the pain of hunger. If the cold and hunger disappear, then the pleasure diminishes. Whereas true pleasure, love, perfection, and virtue are such that they are not constructed on imagining something else. They are present of themselves. They are essential, inherent to us. Qualities such as the following are like this: the pleasures of existence, life, love, knowledge, mercy, and compassion, and the beauty of light, sight, speech, noble-heartedness, fine character, and form, the perfection of essence and of attributes, and perfection in actions. Whether or not there is something else, these qualities will not change. Thus, all the perfections of the glorious fashioner, the beauteous maker, the perfect creator are true perfections. They are essential, and what is other than him cannot affect him. They can only be recipients. The second sign. Sayyid Sharif al-Jurjani wrote in Sharh al-Mawaqif, the cause of love is either pleasure, benefit, resemblance, that is, inclination towards creatures of same kind, or perfection. For perfection is loved for itself. That is to say, if you love something, you love it either because of the pleasure it affords, or the benefits it brings, or because it is similar in kind, like the inclination towards children, or because it possesses some perfection. If it is for perfection, no other cause or purpose is necessary. It is loved purely for itself. For example, in the olden days, everybody loved people who possessed perfection. Even if they had no connection with them, they would still love them admiringly. Thus, since all God Almighty's perfections and qualities and all the degrees in His beautiful names are true perfections, they are loved for themselves. The glorious one, who is the true beloved, loves His perfections, which are true perfections, and the beauties of His attributes and names in a manner appropriate to Himself. And He loves the good qualities of His art and creatures, which are mirrors reflecting those perfections. He loves His prophets and saints, especially the most noble beloved, who is the Lord of the prophets and Prince of the saints. That is, with His love for His own beauty, He loves His beloved one, who is the mirror to that beauty. With His love for His own names, He loves his beloved one and his brothers who are comprehensive and aware loci of those names' manifestations. With his love for his art, he loves his beloved one and those like him who are heralds and exhibitors of that art. With his love for his artifacts, he loves his beloved one and those who follow him, who appreciate and admire those artifacts and respond to them saying, "What wonders God has willed! How beautifully they have been made!" And with his love for the good qualities of his creatures, he loves his most noble beloved one and his followers and brothers in whom are united the finest of moral qualities. The third sign. All the perfections in all the universe are signs and indications of a glorious being's perfection and beauty. Indeed, all the goodness, perfection, and beauty in the universe is but a pale shadow in relation to his true perfection. We shall indicate briefly 5 proofs of this truth. First proof. A perfect and splendidly adorned and decorated palace plainly points to perfect skill and craftsmanship. And that craftsmanship and art, which is a perfect act, plainly points to a perfect author, master, and craftsman together with his titles and names like fashioner and adorner. And those perfect names doubtlessly point to the master's perfect and skillful attributes. And that perfect skill and those attributes self-evidently point to his perfect ability and faculty. And that perfect ability and faculty necessarily point to the perfection of his essence and the exaltedness of his nature. In exactly the same way, this palace of the universe, this perfect and adorned work of art, self-evidently points to actions of the utmost perfection. For perfections in works of art result from perfection of action, and they demonstrate it. And perfection of actions point to a perfect author and the perfect names of that author. That is, in relation to the works of art, they point to the perfection of names like planner, fashioner, all-wise, all-compassionate, and adorner. Moreover, the perfection of the names and titles, without any doubt, point to the author's perfect attributes. For if the attributes were not perfect, the names and titles which originate from the attributes would not be perfect. And the perfection of the attributes self-evidently points to the perfection of his functioning essence, because it is from the functioning essence that the attributes proceed. And the perfection of essential functions points at the degree of knowledge of certainty to the perfection of the functioning essence. They point to a perfection so worthy that although the light of the perfection passes through the veils of functions, attributes, names, actions, and works of art, it still demonstrates the goodness, beauty, and perfection to be seen to this great extent in the universe. Thus, after the existence of this degree of true, essential perfection has been established with cogent proofs, what importance remains for relative perfections, which look to other things and which exist only insofar as they gain superiority over their likes and opposites? You may understand then just how paltry they become. Second proof. When the universe is studied as something from which lessons are to be taken, the conscience and heart may conjecture and perceive the following. The one who has so beautified and adorned the universe with all manner of fine things, himself possesses an infinite degree of beauty and perfection so that he might make it thus. Third proof. It is a well-known fact that works of art which are well-proportioned, symmetrical, perfect, and beautiful are based on an exceedingly well-drawn-up plan. And a perfectly drawn plan points to a perfectly sound knowledge, fine intellect, and refined faculty of spirit. That is to say, it is the spirit's immaterial beauty which is manifested in art by means of knowledge. Thus, the universe, with its innumerable material fine qualities, is formed of the distillations of immaterial fine qualities pertaining to knowledge. And those immaterial qualities pertaining to knowledge and those perfections are certainly the manifestations of an infinite, eternal loveliness, beauty, and perfection.